Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. We're going to talk about Dragons of Stormwreck Isle. All right, this is part of a playlist. It needs to be watched in the order it shows in the playlist. The link for the playlist is below to get full context. All right, let's go. All right, in my humble opinion, there is a secret adventure that has been coded in 9 pieces of art that exist in the Dragons of Stormwreck Isle rulebook and in the Dragons of Stormwreck Isle adventure book. Okay, these are brand new. I call them the dozy artifacts. This has never been done before in all of Dungeons and Dragons, where where an adventure has contained a Muggle adventure, like just hey, I'm a dungeon master. I run what I'm told to run, and a secret adventure, right? A second adventure, which is carried not through the text, but through the art. Okay, in my humble opinion, there's a secret adventure in the middle of Dragons of Stormwreck Isle, and every single one of these dozy artifacts, these 9 images, which are unprecedented in the history of Dungeons and Dragons, in my humble opinion, contain 100% the D&D 1980s Saturday morning cartoon characters, which if you look at them, you will instantly recognize them, and everyone did. All right, so let's get into this. So in my humble opinion, those are absolutely 100% the D&D 1980s Saturday morning cartoons. And that's important because all that links back to Gary Gygax, and the D&D 1980s Saturday morning cartoon was his penultimate accomplishment. All right, okay, so let's go ahead. All right, so today what I want to talk about is I want to talk about the dozy artifacts, the 9 artifacts that contain pictures, the 9 images in the dozy rule, the Dragons of Stormwreck Isle rulebook and the adventure book that contain pictures of the D&D 1980s Saturday morning cartoon characters. So there are 9. There are 4 in the rule book, 5 in the adventure book. Why are there 9? In order to excavate the secret adventure, in order to interpret the secret adventure, in order to sequence the information in the secret adventure, and then deliver it to your players as a functioning adventure, right? We have to decipher the code that Wizards of the Coast, in my humble opinion, clearly put into the Stormwreck Isle product. Okay, that product serves 2 functions. It serves to give content to Muggle DMs, right? Just people who believe what they're told, right? Kind of sheeple, right? Like it's for them, right? And there's no shade on if you're new. Like you're just gonna do what you're told until you learn deeper, and then start looking deeper into Dungeons and Dragons and want to understand its true legacy, and if you want to understand its creator, Gary Gygax, incredibly complex man. We're still unpacking what he did today. All right, so. So you have all this happening, right? And so why are there 9? All right. So I'm gonna unlock the code for you and tell you why there are 9. So Dungeons and Dragons, all deeply intellectual, deeply emotional products, and that's exactly what Dungeons and Dragons is. It's a deeply intellectual tool and a deeply emotional tool. It deals with the intellect and emotions of human beings at a level that quite literally no intangible, and that's what Dungeons and Dragons is. It's an intangible, okay, has ever been able to do. Okay, so it's incredibly deep. And so any of these super texts, right, that really speak to the emotion and the intellect of humans at a deep level, they have relationships with specific numbers, right? And Dungeons and Dragons has a powerful relationship with the number 3. Okay, and so there are 9 dozy artifacts. 4 in the rulebook, 5 in the adventure. 4 plus 5 equals 9, right? There are 9 because it's pointing to three threes, right? 3 plus 3 plus 3 equals 9, okay? And the reason why there are 9 is it's pointing to the 3 central catalysts of Dungeons and Dragons. And what are those 3 central catalysts, right? The number 9 was chosen very, very carefully by the Wizards of the Coast Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition Gary Gygax celebration team, because that's synonymous. Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition design team, Gary Gygax celebration team, that's synonymous. They're the same thing, okay? If you want to celebrate Gary Gygax today, you play Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and just about nothing else. You play it at the 51% level. You don't play anything else at the primary at the 51% level. Let me make that clear. All right, so basically, what are the 3 threes that it's celebrating? Well, first of all, the pillars. It all comes back to Gary Gygax, right? And Dungeons & Dragons Stormwreck Isle is the most aggressive, most direct, most powerful celebration of Gary Gygax that has ever existed in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, surpassing even Amanda Hayman's work in Strixhaven, okay? And even Mike Merle's material in the PHB, the MM, and the DMG. All right, so let's get into it. What are the 3 threes? First, the pillars. Gary Gygax put the pillars into Dungeons & Dragons in 1974. Combat, exploration, okay, and interaction. Combat, interaction, and exploration. That's the correct order, right? So those 3, they're huge. I've talked lots about the pillars. I don't need to talk more about them here. Next is the trilateral sourcing narrative, okay? So the reason why Dungeons & Dragons surpasses every other tabletop role-playing game in the world and surpasses every other narrative method ever used by any human in the history of humanity is because of this narrative trilateral sourcing. The Dungeon Master comes forward and sets up the pins, okay? The players come in and they knock those pins down. This is what's true. This is one of the things that is incredible about Dungeons & Dragons. Every other art form is like, hey, I'm the great and mighty author. Now I'm going to subject my art on you, and you shut up and you have no interaction with it. You can't change it midstream, right? And Gary changed that fundamentally. He's like, the experiencer changes the story, can literally interrupt the mighty author, right, in their mid-sentence and say, no, go different, take it in a new direction. I don't like this, I want this. This had never been done before, right? In fact, almost every other narrative method was like, shut your mouth, right? You just sit there and you get subjected to whatever nonsense this artist slapped on a page, right? And Gary ended it and said, no, human narrative is personal and meaningful and respectful. And it shattered the foundation of human narrative in a way that has never, ever occurred. And he made it important because he's like, I reject large audiences. Stories are too important and too personal, right? 1 dungeon master, 4 players. Every player's needs matter. Their safety matters. And he crafted this new narrative method that is unparalleled anywhere. And then he took the Dungeon Master and the Dungeons & Dragons player and he interrupted them both with math and fate and chaos, right? Saying, neither one of you will ever get everything you want again. The age of the almighty author, the privileged author, right? Bringing their nonsense ideas without interruption is done, right? And he made story match actual life, where our lives are impacted by math and chaos and, and it just, and fate, right? Incredible, right? And so the Dungeon Master, the Dungeons & Dragons player, and the dice, that is the second 3, okay? And last, you got some, I'm telling you right now, everybody is looking at Dungeons & Dragons, and there are scholarly books being written, and the design team, they say it all the time. They're like, we're going back into this library of physical books that we have, and we are connecting with these products in ways that are unprecedented, right? And really going back to the core, the heart of Dungeons & Dragons and everything Gary did, right? And so the last 3 is a look at the eras, right? And if you look at the Dozy artifacts, you'll see each one of these. The Dungeons & Dragons eras, the eras of Dungeons & Dragons, Gygaxian, 1974 to 1986, okay? William Sy, Lorraine Williams, era of rulership, of reigning over Dungeons & Dragons, which has terrified middle-aged white male authors for the last 48 years. And you can find a huge number of hit job academic books written to yank that crown off her head. It remains. They have failed. Lorraine Williams was the best thing that ever happened to Dungeons and Dragons, second to Gary only. And she is its greatest guardianship, and she fixed every problem Gary's hubris brought to Dungeons and Dragons. Right? And Dungeons and Dragons would have failed and would not be here without her. She was its greatest guardian, and she is the second name of importance in all of Dungeons and Dragons. Right? She is its queen. Gary was king. She is its queen. Right? The Dungeons and Dragons queen, title goes nowhere but Lorraine Williams, and we are just now returning to give her the respect she is due. All right? And trust and believe there are enemies that are trying desperately to rewrite history on Lorraine Williams. All right. The last is the Omni era. So Lorraine Williams' era was from 1986 to 1997. She carried the game through 11 years of onslaught and protected it from everything it needed to protect it to, and built incredible forever value in Dungeons and Dragons, making it more valuable, in my opinion, than the Marvel IP. We just haven't recognized it as a human species. All right, the last is the Omni era. That is an era where, so basically, the first 23 years of Dungeons and Dragons, it had two parents, right? Who really, their like impact on Dungeons and Dragons life was preeminent and unmatched anywhere, right? And those parents cared for it, and they said what happened. And the first 23 years of Dungeons & Dragons' life was determined wholly by two people. First Gary Gygax, and then Lorraine Williams. From 1997 to today, we are in the Omni era, and many people have had D&D grew up, and the moment it became 24 years old, it could make decisions for itself. And its creators and the people it interacted with in the space of primary creator has switched many times. Mike Mearls was super important. Amanda Heyman was super important. Jonathan Tweet was super important. Robert Hainsue was super important. Monty Cook had a possibility of being super important to Dungeons & Dragons and failed to do it and abandoned it and broke his relationship with Dungeons & Dragons. But we're in the Omni era now, and that's the last of the three. So we have those 3 threes, and all the coded information in Dragons of Stormwreck Isle are pointing directly to those 3 threes, and that's why there are 9 dozy artifacts, in my humble opinion. I'd like to hear your humble opinion. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.